Alright, hello, welcome. It is episode 19, maybe 17? No, 19, 18? 19 I think, of Hunter x Hunter. We are getting finally into the final phase of the Hunter exam. We've been waiting a very long time for this. Oh man, it's been so long, but we're finally here. It's been long for me. I imagine it's been even longer for you watching my videos. I don't know how often I'm going to be uploading, but it's probably going to be a while. It's going to be a long journey for you before you reach this point, I imagine. Oh man. But yeah, it seems as though this final phase is some kind of tournament. But Netero, I think his name is, the old man who's kind of organising all this stuff. It seems as though he has something in mind that's a bit different from a regular tournament, because at the end of the last episode he was presenting like the brackets, I think, and everyone was looking so shocked and surprised. So I assume he's got something a little bit more interesting up his sleeve, especially since he described the fight as being peculiar. So yeah, I don't want to waste too much time really. I can discuss. Well, I feel like how's this going to progress? I feel like we've got, assuming that this is like a regular 24 to 25 episode long story arc. That means we probably got about six-ish more episodes to go. A couple of those episodes at the end are probably going to be a cool down, you know, because this has been a very long arc, so you'll need a couple episodes after the end of it to kind of cool down, probably. So yeah, this tournament could last a good few episodes, definitely. But I wonder if we're going to get the tournament this episode, or if this is going to be another build-up episode, I wonder. Well, I don't want to waste too much time. I'm very interested to see this, so let's just hop straight into it. Alright, so that was... Oh boy, that was episode, what was it, 18? 19? I'm really bad at them. I'm really bad at remembering which episode it is. Oh boy, that was quite the ride. So that's it then. Gon succeeded. He's a hunter. I mean, not officially yet, but like he's passed the exam because he won that fight. That is not what I was expecting. So okay, so I'm looking at the scorecards now. I'll talk about what just happened in the episode, and I'll go on to the not the scorecards, sorry, the matchups. So, I was expecting, okay, going into this episode, Gon was my number one well, not going into this episode, sorry, but once I figured out the way the tournament works with like only one person can lose, Gon was my number one choice for the loser, because I mean it makes sense, right? He's the protagonist, so if we're going to single out one person to lose, it would kind of make sense for it to be him, you know, because then he loses. But now I'm starting to wonder if it'll be Killua, because he's got this whole thing right now where he's starting to be a bit jealous of Gon, because Gon was shown, the old man Netero, I think his name is, Netero, the old man, he ranked this system, these brackets, based on how much like potential and score, how much score they had, and Killua scored lower than Gon, and that annoyed him. And now he's watching like, I could have dodged that, I could have done that better than you. And he's like, now he's starting to get that jealousy seeping in, where he's like, why the hell has Gon scored higher than I am? But I think that's kind of the beauty of this system, where the only way to lose is to admit defeat, because I think the point of it is that he's trying to test for who will be the better hunter in the long run, not who's the better hunter now. Like, for example, Hanzo. Is that his name? I keep forgetting his name. Hanzo. I'm going to say Hanzo. Hanzo might be stronger now, but he also has 6 extra years of training over Gon, right? Potentially longer than actually if Gon... We don't know what Gon's background is. Maybe Gon hasn't trained at all and this is just his natural ability, right? So Hanzo has at least 6 extra years of training and at most 18 extra years of training. So he's obviously going to win a fight, right? It makes sense now that I think about it, right? Like, of course he does. Like, of course going into it you have hope for Gon because he's the protagonist and he has protagonist powers, but when you think of it from like a more logical perspective, forget about anime and anime logic and, well, he's the protagonist so he's got to win, you know, forgetting about all that stuff. Of course it makes sense Hanzo would win. He's so much more experienced and older and presumably, well, by the looks of it, a lot stronger too. It makes perfect sense. So, Yeah, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. But that doesn't mean that by the time Gon is Hanzo's age, he can't potentially be a lot stronger than Hanzo is. And that potentially is more valuable because think of it this way: if Hanzo in 18 years had reached a 6 out of 10, but Gon in 18 years can reach a 9 out of 10, then that means 20 years, or 25 years, or 30 years, Gon is going to be way stronger then than Hanzo will be then. You get what I mean? If Gon has more potential than Hanzo, then that means that down the line, Gon will end up, in theory, being a better hunter than Hanzo would be. So, in this case, the tournament isn't designed to judge your physical ability and your combat ability now. It's designed to judge your willpower and your desire and your hunger, and allow Netero to see your potential and what you're made out of, so that so down the line you can what was I thinking? So down the line, you will ultimately have the right person for the job. It's no good having someone who's really strong, but mentally is willing to give up super easily. Like, I'm not Hanzo, for example. He seems like he's fairly mentally strong to some extent, but like, you wouldn't want a participant who's made it this far because he's just supernaturally talented and skilled, but then the moment he comes up against someone stronger than me, just fucking cowers in his boots, right? You wouldn't want something like that. But someone like Gon, for example, who might not be as powerful now, but has the potential and is willing to get stronger and face tougher opponents and never give up, he might have a lot more potential down the line. So it makes, now that I'm thinking about it, it does actually make a lot of sense to do it this way. Because you get the best of both worlds, right? You get to judge their physical ability, but more importantly, their mental ability. But this is a super interesting tournament that only one person will lose. So let's actually look at the brackets. I don't know if I'm going to have an image of the brackets on screen or whatever, but I might. I don't know how that really works in regards to copyright and stuff. Hopefully, I imagine it'll be fine, right? But yeah, so from left to right, well, let's look at potential. He marked this in terms of their performance, which is interesting, because if you think about it, okay, so that means the number of attempts you get represents the how much he thinks you performed. So the people who perform better get more attempts. So according to this, Hanzo and Gon were the two who performed best in this tournament, more so even than Hizura? I've forgotten his name suddenly. The clown guy. I've forgotten his name for some reason all of a sudden. Hizuka. Is that his name, Hizuka? I think so. And then the people who performed worst are, interestingly enough, it's Leorio, which isn't a surprise, and Pinhead guy, which is interesting. I wonder why he... Maybe because... I don't know. I wonder why he is like considered the least out of all these guys. That's very interesting. That's very interesting indeed. So let's go through all this and look at all the brackets. So we've got match 1, Gon versus Hanzo. Obviously Gon wins. Hanzo goes to the next round, where he will face up against what was his name, Poco or something, the Hunter Kid. So next it's going to be Hanzo versus the Hunter Kid. I assume Hanzo will win that, and then the Hunter Kid will go on to the next round, I would assume, as the loser. And then it'll be Killua versus the Hunter Kid. And I can't imagine Killua losing that fight. That seems pretty one-sided. I could imagine Killua losing if he faces Hanzo in that round, because we haven't seen the upper limits of Killua's power. We've seen that he's very strong, but everyone's very strong, like we haven't seen the upper limit of anyone, right? So we don't know where everyone sits, For all I know, the martial arts master could be way stronger than Killua, for all I know, Hanzo is clearly leagues above Gon. And even though Killua is also probably leagues above Gon, we don't know what either of their maximum is. So I could understand a situation in which Hanzo loses to Gon. Not Hanzo, sorry, in which Killua loses to Hanzo. But if it ends up being the archery kid versus Killua, I can't see Killua losing that fight. Like, that just seems way too easy for him. Unless the archer kid ends up being super good and I'm just underestimating him. And then the next fight So I'm expecting Killua would win. But let's go to the other side of the bracket briefly. So first match is Kurapika versus fucking what's his name? I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Hisoka. That's his name, right? Hisoka. I think so. Hisoka. I think that's his name. Kurapika versus Hisoka. I expect that Hisoka will win that fight, right? That seems like pretty clear. He's not going to lose. And then after that, it'll be Hisoka will Kurapika will move down to face the martial arts master, and I assume that Kurapika will also lose that fight. The reason being because if he loses that fight, then he gets to face Leorio, and that just seems like the perfect match, right? It makes sense that match was going to happen. Like I was mentioning, I think it was last episode. That's a fight that's been built up since the very first episode, so it would make sense, right? And then, but let's think of the alternatives, right? So if Killua does beat Archery Kid, which is the most likely option, then that means Archery Kid then has to face the Pinhead guy, and I assume Pinhead guy will win, and then Archery Kid will move down to the final round, right? And on the other side, the expected outcome would be that Clown Guy beats Kurapika, and then Kurapika loses again to Martial Arts Guy, and then Kurapika and Leorio face, and the expected outcome for that would be that Kurapika would win that fight, right? That's what you would expect to happen, in which case Leorio would move down to face Hunter Kid in the final round. And I don't know, I feel like someone important has to lose. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, they're singling out that only one person can lose. And if you're singling out that only one person can lose, that makes it seem like the person who loses has to be someone important, right? Which makes me feel like Leorio would lose in that situation. Maybe I'm just underestimating the Archery Kid. Who knows? Maybe I'm just underestimating him, right? But I don't know, man. But then again, okay, but let's look at the alternatives. Let's say Hanzo and the Archery Kid fight, Archery Kid loses and goes on to the next round to face Killua. It would actually be interesting if Killua lost to Archery Kid, because Killua was saying, I don't want that fight, it seems so boring, right? It would be an easy fight, it would be so boring. But then, and I said that Killua's best matchup would be against him because he'd be immune to the poison, right? But if I've been underestimating Archery Kid and he's actually super good, and he beats Killua, then Killua goes on to the next round to face Pinhead. And if that happens, I feel like it would make sense for... I mean, either of one of them could win, right? Either one of them could win that fight because both of them seem really strong. But it would make sense for Killua to lose and then go to the final round. In which case, it would be interesting if Killua loses, but the problem is I can't... Who would he lose to, you know? Because if martial art... Because let's think of it this way. Killua is definitely stronger than Kurapika and Leorio, 100%. That's not up for debate. He's definitely stronger than those two, right? As far as we're aware right now, that is. Maybe new evidence will come out that Kurapika is secretly super strong, but as of right now, that's the situation that we're aware of, that Killua is definitely stronger than those two at least. Which means that and since Hisoka is basically guaranteed to win... I just thought of something. Interesting. Something just hit me. Because I was thinking, how could Killua possibly lose? Because Hisoka's definitely going to win, right? That's obvious. He's definitely going to win. In which case, the only person that could possibly face Killua in the final round would either be Kurapika or Leorio, or someone who was lost to them. So it would have to be someone much weaker than him. So the only way in which he could lose that fight would be if he was already weakened, because he's not going to take it easy on him. That's not his character. So maybe if he was weakened by something, but he's immune to poison, right? But maybe if he was weakened by injuries or something. But then I thought of something. Then I thought of something very interesting. Hisoka, he is very interested in Killua. That's the person he's most interested in seeing. So what if Hisoka loses on purpose so that he can face Killua in the final round? Because Hisoka knows what Pinhead is capable of, they're friends, so if Pinhead is strong enough to beat Killua, he would know that, Hisoka would know that. And that means that Killua would only have to lose one more fight against Hanzo. So if Killua loses against... Oh, not Hanzo. Hanzo or the archery guy. So if Killua loses another fight against them, then, presuming Pinhead is stronger than him, Hisoka would be guaranteed to face him in the final round. Basically, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is if Pinhead is stronger than Killua, and Hisoka knows that, then so long as Killua loses his first match, and Hisoka deliberately loses his, they would be guaranteed to face each other in the final round. And then Hisoka beats Killua, and Killua is eliminated, and then it's the ultimate reversal, because out of all 4 of our main characters, he's the one who you would least expect to lose, because he's definitely the most capable of them. And then that further deepens his jealousy of Gon, which can lead to some really nice character development. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I kind of feel like that's what's going to happen now. That makes sense. It makes sense, because Killua's already got these jealous feelings, right? And the fact that only one person can lose means it's got to be someone important, right? They're not going to have fucking random Johnny be the one person who loses. They're singling it out because it's got to be an important thing. I'm just getting a spider. It's got to be important. Right, so I feel as though it would make very little sense for just some random person to lose, because then that takes away the impact of only having one loser. Right? Being the one person who lost out of everybody would have a huge psychological impact on them. And that would be a great thing for character development for one of our characters. It would make sense for Leorio, since he's already been carried through this entire thing, and it would just further enforce that mentality he has of, I need to prove myself. It would make sense for Gon, because he's the protagonist, and that's the kind of plot you would see a protagonist have to go through, you know? Not necessarily your average anime. Your average anime would probably have the protagonist win. But I mean, in an anime like this, that's a bit smarter than that, that's the kind of plot you could imagine happening, where the protagonist just completely fails at everything. But yeah. I feel like if one of our main characters is going to lose, it makes the most sense for it to be Killua. Because that's exactly the opposite of what you would expect to happen. Which is why I think it's going to happen, if that makes sense. Like, it's exactly the opposite of what you would think would happen. Which, combined with all the evidence I've just gone through, would in a weird way make it the most likely one to happen. But that would rely on Hisoka losing. Okay, if Hisoka loses his first fight, then I think Killua loses the entire thing. But if Hisoka wins his first fight, then I think Killua wins also. So whether or not Killua wins or loses, I think is directly tied to whether Hisoka wins or loses. Because I can't see... Because in order for Killua to lose completely, he would need to lose in the final round. And other than his... And he can't lose in the final round to anyone who isn't in the opposite side of the bracket, right? Because everyone on his side of the bracket he would face before the final round. And the only person on the opposite side of the bracket who he could face in the final round who could beat him is Hisoka. Because if Kurapika and Leorio make it that far, we already know Killua was stronger than them. And if the martial arts master falls to that point, well, that means he was beaten by either Kurapika or Leorio, which means he's weaker than them if he gets to that point. So the only person Killua could lose to actually be eliminated completely would be Hisoka, because he's the only one who could reach that point and be strong enough to beat Killua. And Gon's already eliminated, which means he's not going to lose. So the only person of any significance from that side, from the left side of the board, is Killua to lose. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense that would happen. It makes more and more sense the more I think about it. I could go on talking about this for fucking hours and going through all the different matchups and stuff, but I'm just gonna leave it there, because if I keep talking forever, I'm gonna have no time to actually watch the episodes. It's good talking about them, but there's no point talking about them if you don't actually go through and watch them, right? So yeah, I'm gonna leave this episode there. Thank you very much for watching. I'm very excited to move on to the next episode. Make sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to be up to date with videos and stuff. Share the video if you want to help out my channel, because that's really useful. And yeah, I'm very excited. I'm gonna go record the next episode now, and I will see you there very shortly.